El Dorado Wildcats, good morning. As you have probably already heard, we have switched to a new process for absence management and also substitute processing and management as well. And so would like to take some time this morning to go over that new software, give you kind of the highlights of that, and also discuss some common questions, concerns, and otherwise we've had so far. So with that, the agenda is on the screen. You've probably heard this formerly called ASOP. Long story short, this company was bought out by a company named Frontline, and so Frontline has retermed or recoined the software name as Absence Management. First and foremost, I'd like to direct you to one of the hot links that we have made available for you from the district webpage. If you would, please, at this time or at your convenience, simply go to the staff resources. And the first link right there, Absence Management, as you can see, also known as ASOP. From there, I would recommend you bookmark that page for your quick reference in the future. The next is the directions for the video link for the other 2 or 3 logins. We've asked your principal to distribute those, but if you cannot find it, I would simply go to the YouTube channel for the district, and you will see it up here shortly. It's going to be up in one of our actual channels. I just posted that right there, so you'll see that there. But again, that's going to help you link the logins if you are a My Learning Plan, now called Professional Development, and also user for this. So it allows one portal for 2 logins. Next item I'd like to cover is that upon your initial login, Sherry has asked that you please confirm all your details. If you would, the building you're working at, the grade level, your approvers, etc. We just want you to go ahead and confirm that all those details are correct. And again, email Sherry only if you have any concerns or you see something that needs to be changed. Quick reminder regarding the current NEA agreement, which pertains to discretionary days, that is still in effect. If we have 3 or more of those on any given day, then the subsequent approval of the 4th and beyond will be up to the superintendent. So the software will actually help us monitor that more quickly and efficiently, but again, that same protocol stays in place. And lastly, under the general items, we have a mobile app. We're still developing or looking at that as far as its usage. If and when that is something that we find is available and potentially efficient or effective for you, we will get those details to your principal. First of all, let's go over some protocols. So first and foremost, we'd like for all absences, regardless of whether it's a half day, full day, you're only gone for 7th hour to get to the ball game, we want all those to be recorded in absence management. Second, we're going to ask you to continue to use the pink sheets, the old archaic form, until 9:30. We kind of are setting ourselves up for a safety valve, if you will, for the months of August and September. Hopefully those won't be needed at all, but we're simply asking you to do that for these first 2 months just as a backup plan. Third is that all your absences are going to be directed to your building principal, or in some cases assistant principal first, and then Sherry Bilson will serve as the second level approver. That is simply for your information. I just want you to know where your absences are being directed. Lastly, the building secretaries will then handle this reconciliation process that occurs after the fact. And it kind of goes with my last point here as far as if you're an internal sub. We're going to ask you to fill out the sub pink sign-in sheet. I don't know what the proper term for that is, but this simply helps with the paper trail that we have. So if you cover for somebody else's 7th hour, we're going to ask you to sign in on that just like one of our external subs would. We're going to call our absences really 3 different types this year. You won't see a lot of this in the system on your end, but for the protocols and procedures that we've set up, there are really 3 as far as we're concerned. The first of which is the emergency, the day of. You've woken up, it's 4:30, and you are well aware that you or one of your children is sick. There's no chance you're going to be able to teach today. That is an emergency or day of absence. A sub is needed for that one. The second, this is a planned or future. You know that on October 7th, for example, you're going to be gone. You're going to take that day off. You're going to burn one of your 2 discretionary days for a 3-day weekend, whatever the case may be. This also, of course, would need a sub. The third type of absence is what we're going to call a partial. And this is for those folks that are involved in activity-related absences. So, for example, the football team plays on Friday. You're going to be gone from the last 2 blocks of the day. In this case, we're not going to use the sub calling feature. We will still use the sub, but I'll explain that later. But very simply, you're not going to use the sub calling feature. The automated subcalling then takes place regardless of approval, so it doesn't have to sit there and wait for the principal to have approved it. If it's an emergency or day of absence, it's going to begin at 5:30. I would encourage you folks to put these in as soon as you can. If you wake up right away and you know that you have no business being in the building and it's 5:30, let's go ahead and get that absence in. That allows the system and the automated calling to go to work immediately. It is going to continue to work and try to find a sub until 7:30 a.m. At that point, we've asked the system to simply shut off, and at that point, it's going to become a decision by the secretary and principal as far as how we fill that day, so we have a teacher in the room at 8 o'clock. Hopefully, we never get to that, but that is the safety valve there. For upcoming absences, it's going to begin at 5 o'clock p.m., and it's going to call until 9 o'clock p.m., and it's going to begin 2 days prior to the absence. Now, there is a caveat there that I'll get to later as it relates to your preferred list. And then lastly, for the activity or partial, we're going to ask your building secretary. Each building has a person or people responsible for this. They are going to fill that during the reconciliation process. And again, this is where it becomes critical that if you are that internal sub that is filling in for the 7th hour period, we need you to sign in so that way the paper trail matches up. The fourth subject here is the preferred list. I'm actually going to go through that with you and show you a simulation. But very simply, this is going to allow you as a teacher to prioritize up to 5 subs in the system. If it is utilized, then when you put in either an emergency or an upcoming absence, it's going to use that list first. So keep that in mind. If you choose not to utilize this or simply don't prefer to have a preferred list, then it's going to simply pull from the pool at random. I will show you that here in a little bit. Let's finish this first. Fifth topic here is cancellations and changes. If it is unfilled, so you haven't yet had a sub that's been assigned, you'll still be able to cancel it in the system. So maybe the plans have changed for October 7th and you're now going to be gone later in November. If we haven't yet filled the sub, let's simply get in there and cancel that, and nothing is affected. If it has been filled, this must now be handled by Sherry. So again, if your plans change, we understand that they do. We understand that ball games get canceled. We understand that plans change. Simply coordinate this with your building principal first. Provide them for the reason why you're no longer taking the day. The principal, then Sherry, will then work out the subsequent cancellation in the system and the notification of the sub. Lastly, if it's a past absence, and the biggest example I can think of here is that you are so sick that you have to go to the hospital and throughout the course of the day never have the time or ability to put it in. You cannot enter them. So once it is officially 12:01 a.m. of the following day, past absences are no longer available for you. We still will enter them. We still would like to track all of them in the absence management, but you're going to have to, again, coordinate this with your principal. So first contact your building principal, and then he or she will coordinate that with Sherry. And then just lastly, some miscellaneous items here for you. If we get into the situation with a long-term sub, pregnancy is probably the biggest one I could think of here. Again, we're going to ask you to handle this with the same procedures you have in the past. Contact your principal first. Let's have him or her figure out who they would like to use, and then they will work with Sherry. Or again, we're going to use the system, but you're not going to input it as you would with a day of or future absence. We're going to handle that a little differently because of some of the settings. Second, for our itinerant staff, Martin Munoz comes to mind here. If you are gone from a full day in which multiple buildings are going to be affected, this is going to be approved by your home school principal. Those principals have been notified of that, so they should know that this is the case. I realize this is only a handful of you folks, but for those of you in this situation, that's how we're going to do that. And then lastly, you're going to see some settings for budget code and vacancy. Let's just go ahead and ignore those for now. We have not yet turned those on. All right, so let's go to the system and show you a few simulations just so you can see how it works. I would, of course, encourage you to do this yourself. I'm going to use the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Russell Baker, for our simulation here. So the first thing I'm going to do is log in and show you Mr. Baker's side. And this is what your login should look like. Again, make sure you have that credential paper and you've gone through the PIN and login setup first from your principal. All right, so if I'm Mr. Baker, the first thing I need to do, of course, is check on my settings, check that everything matches, etc. So I'm going to go here. I can go to the directory. I could see that my two approvers are Mrs. Davis and or Mrs. King. And then Sherry, of course, is my level 2 approver. Okay. Go to my account. I am the EMS computer teacher. Language, of course, is English. I'm not too worried about that. I want to make sure that the phone number matches my building and the email address matches appropriately. I realize some of you do and do not have middle initials, so please be sure to check on this because this is how you're going to receive notifications. Okay, let's work on the preferred sub list. So I've decided I would like a preferred sub list. First thing I'm going to do is add subs. I'm just going to pick a couple here for no particular reason. Add them here. Now what I can do is if I wish to, I can put them in a preferred order, and it's going to simply call Dorothy first. If Dorothy declines or is not able to answer, it's going to kick right over to Mandy and so on. Okay, it's going to start and work in the order that you provide. If things change or the relationship changes, you're going to simply be able to remove those folks, okay, and you would be able to add another 3. Directions are here, but that is how to do a preferred sub list. I realize for many of you, you have preferred subs. You've requested this in the past. We don't want to change that protocol, but instead let the software do the work here for you. All right, the next thing you're going to do, and probably the most popular, is create some absences. Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies for the interruption. Some technical difficulties there. Okay, so we were about to enter an absence. I am logged in as Mr. Baker. I am going to be gone on October the 20th. And I would like to take a discretionary day. You will see that it is allowing me to pick full day or half, AM or PM. The only time you're going to use the custom, of course, is when we have those activity absences. You're going to have a requirement to provide the note to the administrator. We've set that for your discretionary days, so I'm going to go ahead and rub it in Mrs. King's face, and I'm going to be gone on a cruise. Now, you will see a feature that I'm going to encourage a lot of you to use. As you're well aware, we have planbook.com. I'm sure that Mr. Baker has 10 pages worth of lesson plans already written for October 7th. So he's going to be able to go in, attach a file, and that substitute's going to be able to see the exciting lesson plans that Mr. Baker has already planned for the day. Make sure that this has yes here. The only time we're going to switch that to a no is if it's an activity absence. And we're going to let the system go to work pretty much immediately upon the creation of this absence. All right. So I now have a confirmation number, which I can write down and record, but the system is going to keep that here for me. Okay, you're going to see right here, it says no sub required, unapproved. The reason why it has no sub required, we have the sub calling off right now. In the future, this would say sub required, of course, if it was during the school year. All right, so Mrs. Bilson is over in the next room. Logged in as Mrs. King right now, and when I hear from her that she has approved, I'm going to show you how we can kind of track this for you. You'll see the attachment there, and this is basically what the sub would see as well. Okay, so now Mrs. Bilson has logged in as Mrs. King. You'll see before it had the unapproved, it's now partially approved. Okay, so now I'm going to let her go to work as the final approver. And we'll wait for her there. She's now logged in as Sherry instead of Mrs. King. And all I have done while I've hit pause is just simply refresh the browser. No need to log out. You're going to now see that it has received its full approval. Okay? And so we're going to see, I put an absence in the past just while we were testing. It's going to allow you to basically keep up with all of your absences, whether they are in the past or coming up. As far as their status, you'll see if and when a sub is used. You'll see the filled status as well as where you are in the approval queue. Lastly, one additional thing we've set up here for you is an email receipt, for lack of a better word, that you're going to see. And so I did one for myself here for August 4th. Yours would look similar to this. Upon receiving that second approval from Sherry, you're going to get this again pretty much immediately. I recommend saving those for if and when you ever need them, but just one more form of communication there for you. So I've pretty much run through the majority of the things that you're going to do in the system. The biggest thing I want to encourage you is if and when is an emergency absence, try to have that in before 5:30. The more time you can allow the system to work, the better. The second is if you know an absence is coming up, I don't care if it is a month from now or in the spring, let's get those in now. Let's let the system do the work. and let's let these absences be filled and or approved. And then the last thing is for those of you doing the activity stuff, I'm going to encourage you to have a conversation with the secretary in your building or the person responsible in your building for those. What I would recommend and like to see is that we put those in at the beginning of the season. If we know when we're going to be gone, the schedule has been set, etc. Let's go ahead and get all those in, and then let's let the secretaries start their process of filling in your blocks or periods that you're going to be out. When you put those in, again, I cannot emphasize enough to please do not use the sub calling feature. We're actually going to have each one of you as teachers in as a sub, but the sub calling feature will not be used for those. So, ladies and gentlemen, we realize this is the first year. There's going to be a lot of questions and concerns. I do not promise this is going to be perfect from day one, but I do promise that we are going to support you and answer any questions and help you as much as we can down the road. So, with that, I leave you with your principals. Again, send any questions you have to either Sherry or myself, and we will do our absolute best to help answer those as quickly as we possibly can. With that, have a great school year. Thank you.